So, first question, why have we decided to do a UI refresh and why now? Well, it's hard to believe, but the TOS is now 25 years old, the V5 TOS. I'm sure you'll agree that over the years it's become extremely functionally rich and meets the complex needs of terminal operators around the world. However, we are aware that the technology that we're currently using would be considered a little dated. The main client requires a Windows PC to use, it's not mobile friendly. The technology is still supported, but it's getting close to obsolescence. And over the years, capabilities have evolved significantly, especially in more recent years, sort of the last decade. We're always connected, so we're all carrying our mobile phones around with us. We've got access to the internet. What did we do before Google, and how lost do we feel when we lose the internet for a little bit? Technology frameworks available to us as software developers, they've also progressed a huge amount. And software architecture and design, well, over those 25 years, that's changed quite radically. Web browser capabilities, we're all on the web all the time. They now allow for full, rich applications, common across desktop and mobile. You don't need the separate applications anymore. You can just have one application that deals with everything. So yeah, things have changed in the technology world, and I'm happy to say that we're changing too. We want to keep up. So what are we here to present today? So we're going to show a new application framework that we've been working on, and we'll cover the technology and capabilities that we've got so far that it's capable of, the design concepts that we're working towards, and the type of components that we've already developed. So we're already quite a long way through the journey, I would say. And we're also going to demo a new operations dashboard. It's a module which we've created using the new framework as a prototype, and we believe will bring added benefits and visibility to terminal operators. And we're planning to have that dashboard module available by the end of Q2, hopefully. And ultimately, we intend to roll it out across the entire product, so the entire TOS product, and replace the existing application. So in terms of designing capabilities, there's many mature front-end frameworks out there that we could have chosen to use. Of course, it makes sense to use an industry standard. TBA Leicester, we've always been a Microsoft and C# software house, and it makes sense to go with where our skills are already at. And therefore, Blazor was a natural choice for us. It's a Microsoft framework, provides a really rich component-based framework. It's written in C#, it's perfect for us, and that's what we've gone with. And so the new application, the new components we've written, they're written in C# 12, which is the latest version of C#, and in .NET 8, which is the latest version of .NET from Microsoft. And that has long-term support, so that's the current version essentially for the next 3 years, at which point the next long-term support version would be .NET 10. We've got experience in other areas of upgrading between long-term support versions, and we know it's easy to do, so we've got no worries there. We'll be able to stay current as it goes, as technology moves on. So in terms of the architecture, we designed the system to be backwards compatible with the existing backend, so minimal changes needed really to put this new application on top of the existing database, the existing backend. However, we are going to split it into sections, and there's various reasons for that we'll cover a little bit more in more depth shortly. Don't need to worry too much about that though, because to the end user that's using it, it just appears as a single application. You wouldn't know that the back end is split into different parts. There's one big advantage to doing this, and that's if you want your external customers to have access to, for example, a booking application, through a separate API gateway through the DMZ, you can give them access to just the individual applications. You don't have to give them access to the whole system. You can just give them the access to the individual applications that you want them to be able to access. Much better security-wise. I'm sure you'll agree. For the new applications, we're going to actively support the main browser engines. So we've got Chromium, Safari, Gecko there. And that means that browsers that people typically use, so your Chrome, your Edge, your Firefox, your Opera, your Safari, they're all supported. It's using web-based technology that they all support. Now, in terms of statistics, that means that we're covering 96.5% of the browser market share. That's not to say other browsers wouldn't work. I'm sure they would. But these are the ones we're actively targeting and testing with. So if you're using one of these browsers, then you can be sure that the new application is going to work for you. So not only that, but we'll be supporting different devices with different screen sizes. Like I say, applications these days, web-based applications, you can run the same application on your mobile. You just, the view changes, but the application itself is the same. And we've designed it to work on a variety of machines, so PCs, laptops, tablets, mobile phones. I'm not sure if there's anybody using RDTs at the minute, but I suspect probably will. Well, the good news is that modern RDTs also use an operating system with a supported browser, and therefore you can have exactly the same functionality on your RDTs. We've made a few enhancements with the new front end, and of course, yeah, we've said things have moved on. Some people like to sit in light mode, some people prefer to sit in dark mode. We've got user settings now, so by default it will take your browser settings, so if you're running your Windows laptop in dark mode, for example, it will default to dark mode, but you can override it if you want to, and that choice is saved. And just so that you can see how the application would look, we've got light mode on the left and dark mode on the right. So you can see we're styling it so that it could be either, and it works throughout with standard sort of color schemes. In a similar fashion, I suspect there's some people that like to use different languages, so we built that in as well. So we've got multi-language support. Again, it will default to whatever's on your device. So if your device is in Spanish, it would default to Spanish, but you can override it and it will remember that again. And just so you can see how it might look. At the top we've got UK English, and at the bottom we've got Italian, which is actually just off the bottom of that list of languages. Just say this is just a concept, the files are there, but we haven't translated everything, of course, but if you wanted to, then it would be no problem to translate the application. So given the data grid is a key part of the application that we all sort of love, we thought it'd be good to highlight this particular component. So each grid at the top has the option to refresh the data. If you select the rows, then you can export it to CSV and therefore into Excel, so you can grab the data out of the grid really easily. Or if you've modified the grid, then you can, there's a restore option as well. You can also, or we can choose to add quick filters to the grid. So, for example, if you want to filter just to inbound moves, then it's really easy to click that and it will automatically filter the grid below. And along with that, we've got hotkeys. So you could, it doesn't have to be Alt and I, by the way, it could just be I. So if you wanted that in your MHE layer, where maybe you've got a physical keyboard because of the vibrations, rather than trying to touch a touch screen, we can have the key press and it will filter to inbound or outbound or whatever filters we'd like to add. As you'd expect from Autostore, so the columns are configurable, so you can change which columns are visible, you can resize them, you can reorder them. We've also got really powerful multi-level sorting, so you can change the sorting on multiple columns now. And there's an advanced filter. We haven't got a screenshot here, but there's a really powerful advanced filter on it as well, so you can get to exactly the data you want from the grid. And then we've also got some rich content. We can do that these days. We couldn't in the past. So for example, we've got icons. This was development data, which is why everything's running late. But also process timelines, so if you want to see whereabouts it is in the process from the truck to the yard or vice versa. Some of the screens show staging locations. Again, this is dev data, so we don't have staging locations, but you can see that process timeline in there. And there's also loads of really powerful things we can do with the grids these days. So colors and all sorts of other things against individual columns, for example. And then user settings are, so if you've made all these changes, it automatically saves that for you. So when you come back to this grid, it remembers it. You don't have to set it up every time, which is why if you make a mess of it, we've got that clear settings option at the top. You can reset it back to default if you decide that's not what you want anymore. Along with the grid, we've got data entry forms. These will typically appear at the right-hand side of the screen over the top of the grid. And we've got various things showing here. So we've got read-only fields, we've got fields that are mandatory or require some validation. So in this case, it could be that it validates the telephone number's valid. It's got the right number of digits. That's all easy for us to add. And then at the very top left, you can see that there's also multiple tabs. So we've got, I can't read it, but we've got holiday details and user accounts and booking limits, I think. And that's so that you've got your targeted data on your form. You don't need to have 50 fields on one form, which is a nightmare to then find what you want. You can go exactly where you want. And if you were to click on one of the other tabs, then you can see the amend haulier screen. That's got some different fields on it. So it's very focused just to what you might want to do. It's got the numeric things. You can also add extra information so that if the short text isn't immediately obvious what it's for, we can add a better description. We're also looking to add hyperlinks to online help files so that you can then drill into it and understand exactly what that's doing. So a bit like the V5 client does already. Along with new application, we've got a new login system. So we use a tool called Keycloak. It's a professional tool. So it's a bit different to how it was, but it's very similar. You've still got the user management there. You can set up individual users. So if you've got an agency worker, for example, you can just set them up in the system and they'll be able to log in. However, it's really powerful. It allows quite a few protocols. So for example, it supports OpenID, SAML2, LDAP protocols, many more as well. So should you wish, you could also then link it to your Windows AD accounts. And everybody can have the same sign-in across multiple systems. So you're not reliant on people remembering a different username and password like you currently do. In terms of quality, so we mentioned earlier about having small modules, separation of concerns, and there's good reasons for that. It means that we can containerize them easily. We can put them into Docker containers, which means that we're taking a build early approach, and then that build carries on through the life cycle of the deployment. It also means that they instantly become scalable, so we can use an orchestration tool such as Kubernetes. Say application 3 is under a really heavy load right now. These tools can automatically sense that, say, okay, the backlog of work's too big for this, I'm going to spin up some extra instances. And because they're so small, it can start them almost immediately, within seconds. So you don't have to have those wait times anymore. It can dynamically assign just the parts of the system that it needs to have those extra resources. Don't need to scale up the whole system anymore, just the individual parts. Also means we can test them in isolation. So application 1's got a much smaller area to test, so if that's all we've changed code in, we can get a huge amount of confidence just by testing that part. It shouldn't affect the rest of the system. Of course, come release time, we'll do a full regression test still. But it means that we can really focus in and make sure that everything's working as it should. Easy to scan for security risks, so we can, every time we build one of these, we can scan it for security risks. We can make sure that everything we're providing to you is risk-free. As much as possible, of course. It's always going to be 0 days, but then we'll see those straight away as well. So we can say there's a 0 day in application 3, or we can fix it in application 3, and we can be quick about it. We've not got to search the whole code base. It's there in front of us, which applications it affects. It's easy to provide hot fixes. So yeah, if application 3's got a bug and it's a showstopper, we don't have to deploy a whole system anymore. We can just deploy application 3. So it's much quicker for us to get that to site and deployed, and much safer as well. Very little downtime because the rest of the system stays running, and we're only affecting one tiny part that way. And then we mentioned that we're running .NET 8. Well, when .NET 10 comes along, we'll also be able to take application 1 and upgrade that, and you won't notice it, but we don't have to do everything in one go. So a release might have some modules in .NET 10, and then the next release might have some more, and the release after that might then have everything. It makes it far easier for us to keep up to date, which of course then gives you the performance benefits, the security benefits, everything else that goes with it, so it's not such a big job to do an upgrade for us. Now we've got A strong DevOps culture at TBA Leicester. We're always looking to improve and optimize what we do. As part of this, we have some continuous integration and continuous delivery pipelines. We build and test early and often, so even before it's hit the source repository, we're already building it and running tests against it. The earlier we find any issues, the easier it is to fix them. And of course, the later in the process, then we've got to go right back to the beginning and start again with everything. So finding them early, shifting everything left is key to efficiency. It also means that once we've got that build, we can do things. We can run static code analysis. We can put it through the security scanners. We can put it through the reliability scanners. We can do all sorts of things with it. Like I say, it's all about shifting everything left. And then the new technology framework that we're building all of this in, that allows for automated workflow testing, which is great because it means that we can run workflow tests regularly every night, for example. We can know whilst we're still working on something whether we're causing a problem somewhere else that we haven't seen. So we can make sure that we eliminate all of those sort of follow-on issues. It gives us the confidence in what we're writing before we even take a release. So before that release code is cut, so before it goes to QA even, or before user acceptance testing, before it gets to production, we've already got that confidence in everything we're doing. And also, of course, different browsers, different device types, we can test all of those overnight. So yes, we've made a change for a desktop screen. Has it broken the mobile screen? We'll find that out straight away.
I just thought I'd run through a few screen grabs from what we've developed so far in the first quarter of this year. We had our own set of requirements for this particular module, and I think I mentioned before we did have a workshop. We involved Jamie and people from ABP, also Andrew, and a couple of other terminals. So we looked to start with a splash, if you like, on this refurbishment. What could we provide first that doesn't exist already in the V5 product? And the idea behind this operations dashboard is to group together data that you can find in the existing client suite, but it's grouped together in a more useful manner, shall we say, or an overview manner, so hence the operations dashboard. Steve's already mentioned the component development is done, so there are lots of components we could make use of, and we've looked to apply these to this particular module. And what I'm showing you here is what we've developed so far in this quarter. And we aim to complete version 1, we'll call it, of this operations dashboard by the end of June. So yeah, just to start, I'll come back to this in a moment, but this is call it a vessel visit or a voyage card, and it's showing various relevant information about a particular vessel visit. I'll give a more thorough description shortly, if that's okay. So how are we organising this operations dashboard? So as I said, it's to provide an operations overview to the control room, to management, to whoever. And we've organised it as a set of what we call tiles with the navigation between those, between the two operational areas, 3 actually, because we will include rail, by the way. So it's for landside, i.e. truck operation, waterside, vessel operation, yard and rail operation. Navigation menu you can see on the left of this screenshot. Adrian had trouble with the pointer, I think it kind of works. And you can show and hide that navigation menu. And then the aim is to add, of course, drill down functionalities underneath or following these overviews. So we'll just have a look at the land side first. We've got this consisting of 3 parts. What we're calling the, get it to work again, the truck workload. And really we're just showing a bar graph here of the number of moves occurring for each storage block that you've got. So receival inbound and delivery outbound. We only show storage areas that have got current moves, so The bar graph, if you like, is dynamic in terms of what's going on the terminal. Of course, if all storage blocks are active, then you have a long bar graph and the thing can be scrolled. But we could put truck stats on there, turnaround time, current turnaround time, the number of trucks on terminal, data that's operational data that's available. We've not really added too many KPI pieces to this this dashboard. It's a live operation overview. Truck moves. So again, that's a simple thing, but it's a grid of current container moves, pre-filtered to show those to and from trucks. And again, as Steve pointed out, in fact, good. Yeah, we've got an image that does show that huge operational delays in this development terminal. So you can see anything with an extended dwell time. You can include an indication of the fact that that's running late. And the yard workload, which I'll come to again later if that's okay. Truck moves. So just here you can see the grids, of course, are interactive. So if we pretend this is actually the MHE move screen or container move screen from the existing main client, you can see that you can perform some actions on those moves. So just as an example, we've done those typical actions: hold and release, resume, cancel, and force complete. And for good effect, we've also added a show container history action on those containers that are in that list. So if somebody's pressed hold move in this particular selection, then of course the action list is adaptive. In this particular case, you can't force complete something that's currently held. What you would do is release that move or resume that move. Force complete, data entry. So we have these modal screens that can pop up. If you choose that action, then of course you have to specify where you're forcing that, or if you want to, of course, change the destination of a move you're forcing complete. You can do so in the data entry screen. And again, the behavior of that screen is as Steve described earlier. Just shown here as an example of that modal pop-up type screen for data entry. Container history. So again, as this same way as this is accessible on the existing client, you can click on a container and it'll throw up a timeline of events that have occurred during the handling of that particular container. Again, serving as a useful example of how long has that container move been going. If there's been delays, but where's the problem? The yard workload section. So really this is what other moves are occurring in the yard that aren't related to input or output, aren't related to rail, vessel or truck operation. So principally these would be reorg moves, rehandle moves, or value-added services operation. So we've got a good selection here of those kind of operations that are occurring, showing you a summary of what's going on the terminal. We tried to put in every single order type that we could think of in this particular slide. Again, not here on the demo, but you can then drill down to see the moves or the containers that are involved in each of those particular operations. That would be the idea of this, and that is what we'll include in the first version. And then onto the water side, so vessel operation. Two sections in this. The top half is the vessel operations side. That is those vessel visits, voyages, a card per vessel visit or voyage in chronological sequence. So we haven't done a full sort of Gantt chart or berth plan, but it is indicating the sequence of vessels that are expected to be processed. And again on the bottom, vessel moves, same concept, MHE moves pre-filtered to show vessel related moves, discharge and load. So the card, that I showed earlier. Here it is again. There's some hopefully self-explanatory items here, all about the vessel visit. The timeline is driven by information that you may have pre-entered against that voyage. So things like what's the expected time of departure. Although he says we haven't changed the back end and there's no requirement necessarily to do so, to feed some of the more interesting information in this, we have added a bit of functionality, including the estimated time to complete on the vessel. So the last two fields, the estimated departure, that's, as I say, the time that you pre-fill according to your contract, according to that voyage. But the estimated operations complete is calculated based on the number of remaining moves there are to be done. In a fairly simplistic way, I have to admit, but still it can predict if the operations are going to run longer than the required departure time. And again, that very much came from input from AVP regarding the Humber lock times and so on. Equipment assignment. I've just released all of my container moves and nothing's happening. What's going on? No equipment assigned to those zones or operational areas for that particular vessel. So again, an indication of there's an operational area there or a block of work to be done on that vessel where there's no equipment assigned. And then last but not least, some simple stats on number of containers discharged, number of containers loaded. We've put in weights in this particular time as well, and how long has the vessel visit been on terminal. But that's the kind of capability that we can display for a vessel operation. And then same concept as I mentioned for the actual vessel moves, pre-filtered MHE move list, so we intend to add the move actions, the container history, that kind of thing. Slightly more interesting than truck moves potentially, truck to reach truck and back again. Here at least we've got key crane, so vessel to staging, and that can be a terminal truck or whatever, to storage. So we can show the sort of the timeline or the sequence of moves there. Because we've got a move planner, I'll call it, the steps, the move steps, we can show the equipment that's going to be involved in the moves that are related to the vessel operation. So I ran through that rather quickly, but the main point there being we've come up with an initial module to make use of the new capabilities, the new set of components. So we had these design concepts, we had the requirements capture at the tail end of last year. Here's the UGC, so this is where we are on the development path now. And our intent is at the end of Q2, so end of June, we'll have the first version of this operations dashboard available. It will be included in whatever is the next version of Autostore V5 release. So we've, as you saw from my earlier slide, we've just done 5.6, 6700. So it'll be 6800, 6900, whatever version we've got to by then. This will become a module available in that particular version. What else? So, as I said, we wanted to look for something that would advertise, I suppose, this change in technology. But of course, we've got the rest of the Autostore V5 client to deal with. And we're going to take into account not just the Visual Basic 6 main client, that's been a stalwart for the full 25 years of its existence, but also the technologies behind the field app, the booking app, all of our existing apps we will look to analyze. We want to take some of the lessons that we've learned from the CHS implementation, so look at the design system we've used there, look at the workflow based operation, if you like, that we've implemented there. So it's not just a like-for-like replacement of existing client screens. We want to take the opportunity to rethink some of the functionality. And so, yeah, we will take the opportunity to review that in the second half of this year and work out what comes next. As Steve mentioned, we'll break up in the background the client into a set of discrete parts. So, for example, the utilities menu, no one's probably excited to find out when that's going to be redesigned, but that will come last. But certainly all the user-facing functionality will try and deliver that first, I would say. But we need to make that plan. We've made the components, we've made an initial piece that we can deliver, and then we'll take the opportunity to work through the rest of the functionality that's provided.